is an old school debate. I'm very happy to be able to put this debate together. The idea with this conversation is to be able to bring you both sides of the marriage equality conversation. Now, we're talking about this a lot because this is what's happening in Supreme Court. We've been tracking it a lot. And there are some very strong arguments. And I've had a lot of our audience write to us saying, can we hear both sides of the story? Or can we hear both sides of the debate? To be completely honest with you, we haven't managed to get anybody representing the government to talk to us about it, whether it is from the ruling party, the BJP, or government itself. They're not commenting on the matter. It could be because the matter is sub judice. So we were looking for a voice that can represent the portion of society that believes that this should not happen at this time. So we've got two debaters joining us right now. We have Rahul Easwar, and who's actually arguing against marriage equality, and Harish Iyer, who is an equal rights activist, who has been an activist for many, many years, who's actually one of the petitioners in the case, joining us right now as well. Remember, unlike a television debate, they're not going to be rude to each other. We're actually going to hear each other out because the whole point is to learn from each other. So I want to welcome both Rahul Easwar and Harish Iyer to this conversation. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with Rahul Easwar. Rahul Easwar, if I may start with you, would you tell us what your stand is right now on marriage equality, what your arguments are against it? I think we're still trying to get Rahul. Okay, Rahul is not with us right now. I'll start with Harish Iyer. Harish, sorry about that. You're one of the petitioners. We've heard arguments from all of the petitioners so far, but personally for you, why do you believe that the time has come for this?
I think, Faye, that that this is much delayed. I don't think the time has come now. The time should have come much earlier. But as the natural, we had Section 377, which was the first hurdle, and one law led to another. We had the Puttaswamy judgment, which was the right to privacy, which led to so if you have the right to privacy, then how can you have Section 377, which actually gives the police the right to peep into people's bedrooms and judge them? So right to privacy was used very loosely, if I had to explain that way. And then now that we are legal, now that I can have sex in private with another consenting adult. And if I fall in love with somebody, am I supposed to just be with the person and not have any dreams of starting a life with that person? And if I do start a life with that person, will I get all the rights that are afforded to heterosexual couples? So now I think it's a natural progression of rights that we are seeing right now, and we are pushing the envelope cautiously, and we are cautiously optimistic when we push the envelope from one step to another.
Okay, so this is interesting. You believe that this is part of the progression that we've seen, but first we had the right to privacy, then 377 was read down, which meant that it was no longer illegal to be gay or, let's say, non-heterosexual in India. And this is the next big step. Now, Harish, going by the arguments we have heard in Supreme Court so far, one of the biggest concerns and the concerns raised by the judges yesterday with Dr. Menka Guruswamy's arguments as well was, yes, it's fine to say that, within the Special Marriage Act where it says husband and wife, it could just say spouse. And that should, on a technicality, open it up. But what happens to all the other things that are tied to marriage? Inheritance laws, for example, divorce laws, for example, personal laws, age at which we can get married, all of these various things, it becomes really complicated. What is the response to that?
I think just because it's complicated doesn't mean we shouldn't start with the change It doesn't mean that we should delay any further because it will be complicated. It's not going to be an easy task over here. Very frankly speaking, I mean, you look at marriageable age. Marriageable age for women is 18. Marriageable age for men is 21.
Hmm.
If you look at so what happens when there are two women in love with each other? Gender is not just the binary. Even the Chief Justice of India alluded to that. So if it's not just the binary, if there are some today. In fact, the Solicitor General also mentioned that there's some 72 genders. In fact, there's 76. There are different kinds of genders that are there, different kinds of sexualities that are there, because gender is here. Gender is not in your genitals. So because gender is here, you have different kinds of genders that are there. So how do you read into all those things? Do we have a uniform thing? But the change has to begin somewhere. We can't keep a population out of these are basic rights. If you can't keep them out of basic rights, saying that you know what, the road is too long and the road is too tedious, so we will not walk that path. You have to
Hmm.
walk that path. You have to begin, and slowly and steadily we will fight for each of those rights for that matter.
So I want to ask you this, and this is really important because you're actually in the business of educating people on gender and
Mm.
sexuality and sexual orientation. In fact, through the course of the arguments in Supreme Court, we've had uh, people on our chat window asking us, what is this difference between gender and sexual orientation? Um, how can I suddenly, and if, can I now identify as a glass of water? Can I identify as a dog? Will you then take me seriously? Is there any, if there's managing origin, then include all of these things. Would you be kind enough, Harish Iyer, to explain to us what gender is and what sexual orientation is, and if these two things are related?
100%. So thanks for asking, Faye, because this is something that I wish that we learned in our schools. Because I wish that the underwear that they put on the child when they teach parts of the body just goes off, and you're able to just tell the child that this is an eye, this is a nose, this is a penis, this is a vagina. Because the shame is not in the child, the shame is in our minds. The perversiveness is in our minds. The perversion is in our minds. It's not in the mind of the child. So it's just a part of the body. So sex, if I was to define what is sex, sex is what you're born with. Your sex, if when I was born, the nurse went to my father and said, Mubarak ho ladka hua hai. Congratulations, it's a boy. Because the nurse saw penis. So it's a boy because it's a penis. So when my sister was born, the nurse went to my father and said, Ki, congratulations, it's a girl, because the nurse saw a vagina, right? So sex is what manifests itself. If it's a man, it's XY chromosome internally. If it's a woman, it's an XX chromosome. Now, this is sex. Sex is what manifests itself, but you can see and you can say what exactly is sex. There is another sex called the intersex. Intersex children are children who are born with ambiguous genitalia, or they are in the transition between you when you look at the genitals, you can't make out whether whether they exactly fit into male or they exactly fit into female. Many intersex children, right in their childhood, it's important to also note that Tamil Nadu government has Tamil Nadu High Court has actually banned the operation of intersex children, because the child should grow up, unless there is a physical complication. If the child is able to urinate properly, then there shouldn't be. The child should be able to decide which gender to take, where to align themselves if they really want to. So this is intersex. So male, female, and intersex is what's between your legs. That is sex. What is gender? And the different forms of intersex. I would request your viewers to Google up and to look at anatomy of intersex people, because the different forms of intersex. Also, intersex children, many children who are born with double XY chromosomes, which could be one of the syndromes, could also be intersex children, right? So you have different kinds. Not everyone has Down syndrome or any of those syndromes, but you could also have chromosomal variations in intersex children. So that's sex. Sex is between my legs. Where is gender? Gender is between my ears. So what I tell you I am. Like, for instance, when I grew up, I used to always tell the whole world that everyone assumes. So they say that gender is a social construct because everyone fits you. Because I was born with a penis, everyone thought that, okay, I will love blue as a color. Everyone thought that, okay, I'll possibly have to go out and be macho. So there were a lot of these expressions that got added to my gender just because I was born with a penis. Now that is gender. So that is called cisgender when you align with what exactly the nurse has told you. If the nurse said that it's a boy because she saw a penis, and I'm also saying I'm a boy and I'm a man, I'm cisgender. But if the nurse says that the Mubarak ko ladka hua hai, that it's a boy, and I grow up to say that I'm a woman, I might not have the money to do an operation. I might not have the physicality to undergo an operation. Probably I'm suffering from hemophilia or something which I don't want to do an operation. I can't do an operation. But if I tell you that my gender is that I'm a woman, then you will have to accept that I'm a woman because I know my gender better than you. So that's where gender is. And the other thing is also true that I could be born with a vagina. I could grow up and say that I'm a man. So that becomes a trans man. This becomes a trans woman. Now, where do the people in the Hijra community fall? That's another question that many people have. So people in the Hijra community are trans women. They're born with a penis. They grow up and they many a times get thrown out of their needle. Today, one of the arguments was also about that. They get thrown out of their needle families. And when they get thrown out of their needle families, they have to resort to begging or sex work where they live in small communities. And those communities are called gharana and there are different names for it. There are, if you go to Karnataka and if you are in Maharashtra, you hear about the Zokta, Zokti, Zogappa community. You'll go to the north, you'll hear about Khwaja Sarai. South or down south, you'll hear about the Aravani community. Here, you'll hear about the Hijra community. So these are different communities which many a times have been ostracized, and that's why they live together. Now, this is sex and gender. Now, the third thing is sexuality. Now, sexuality is who do you give your heart to? I'm a man who loves a man, so I could be termed as homosexual. If I'm a man who loves a woman, I could be termed heterosexual. Also, but I and gender and sex is something that you can come to terms with any point. When I knew you, Faye, in the beginning, I identified as a cisgender person. Now I identify as a gender fluid person. Sometimes I dress up as a man, sometimes as a woman, and I can realize that at any point. If you look at Elliot Page, who spent most of his life as we shouldn't be taking the name, the dead name. It's called dead naming. Shouldn't be
Yes.
taking the name, but yes, just because he happens to be a famous person. He used to be called Ellen Page. Now he calls himself Elliot Page. So you can decide to come out at any age, and you can realize that at any point.
So, so let me just rephrase this. Rahul Easwar has joined us as well. Rahul Easwar is arguing on this debate against marriage equality. So what Harish Iyer was just explaining to us, Mr. Easwar, is that there is first there's sex, which is the genitalia that one is born with, which could be male, female, or intersex. Then we have something called gender, which is which is what we identify as, which may or may not be the same as what you were born with. And then there is sexuality or sexual orientation, which is who you love. So there are these three layers that we are now beginning to understand. I think when the Chief Justice said that there is a spectrum, this is what he meant by this spectrum. There are so many different things to it. And because as a society, we haven't talked about it enough and we've not kept enough space to understand, maybe that is why we feel overwhelmed by the fact that there's so much information now coming out because we're talking about it now. But Rahul Easwar, I want to understand from you, and I said in the beginning that this is a debate so we can understand respectfully both sides. So we're going to respectfully listen to each other. I want to understand from you your arguments of why you believe marriage equality should not happen at this point, or why you argue against it.
two submissions. One, all the best to Harish ji, my good friend, for the community's fight. And we all know that the case is going in a particular way that will perhaps be beneficial for them under the Chief Justice. So all the best to them. Second, I humbly diverge with them and disagree with the entire premise of it. But I know, having said that, first of all, no to homophobia is an absolute thing that we all agree with. We should not have homophobia. We should not have any kind of discriminatory attitude. But yes, there should be civilized, intellectual, informed, respectful disagreement, as Faye rightly said. 2 or 3 points. One, taking the name of our Honorable Chief Justice with due respect as a student of law too, I doubt whether even our left liberals are also feeling in their mind, even though they don't articulate, that Chief Justice is going to an extent of saying that there is no absolute biological concept of a man and a woman. I doubt whether it will be accepted even by left liberals. I know I'm sad to use that particular word, but many of us suspect that he is going into a what is usually called in the US parlance a very woke kind of a paradigm, where things are not defined in the way they were used to define earlier. Second, yes, it's a variation in behavior. As we always say, yes, I am a right-winger, but there are some ultra-right-wingers who use wrong words to describe this. Homosexuality is more of a variation in behavior that needs more education, sensitization, and debate. But there are many informed and reasonable apprehensions regarding this on 3 paradigms. One is nature, one is culture, and one is future. These are the 3 core arguments that people are arguing. One, on the genetics of it, which there is a debate. Second, on the cultural aspect of it, where Hindu community are having some apprehensions. Our Semitic brothers, especially Christian Muslim brothers, are having apprehensions because it is codified in the book saying that Sodom and Gomorrah had negative experiences because of having such experiences. So that's a codified thing there. So they are having their own apprehensions. 3, regarding future and legality, the adoptions, the divorce. So there are legal aspects too, which are going to be debated. But yes, we all accept that Supreme Court is the final watchdog of our constitution, and if it interprets in a certain way, we are all bound to agree. But central government too is raising a very reasonable position, and I would like to conclude by saying this position is not only taken by the Indian BJP government. This is the same position that a world-respected leader like Pope Francis also takes, where he rightly says, "I am nobody to judge anyone." At the same point of time, Catholic Church and Pope is yet to accept homosexual marriages. So it's a nuanced position that many people are taking. The Modi government is also taking that position.
Very lucidly put. So these are Rahul Easwar's arguments. He said nature, culture, future. I do want to clarify, Rahul, if I may, when you said too woke, so the Chief Justice's comment was not that there is no absolute biological concept of male. He said the biological cannot be the absolute. There is, like Harish explained to us, there is also the mental idea, there's the gender, there is sexuality, there are many layers to it, there is a spectrum to it. So just biology can't be the defining absolute, is what I believe he said. But what do you mean by too woke? It's so difficult to draw a line saying, okay, this much woke is enough, but after this it becomes too woke. So how do we understand that?
I know I'm a Hindu right conservative activist, so we disagree with anything that is woke. But yes, there are, just like we have moderate Hindus and ultra Hindus, just like we have, moderate leftist and urban Naxals, we too have urban Nazis, people like Narasimha Anand who go to the other extreme. So there are always ultras and there are always, some more radical approaches. But we were all surprised beyond left and right. I think, when Chief Justice said, we were listening to the entire thing. I was seeing it live because it is live telecast. Chief Justice went to the extent of exactly saying there is no such thing as an absolute concept of man or woman. I doubt whether it is true, because if you look at the animal world too, there is definitely male and female. There is definitely the male who produces sperms. There is definitely the female who gets pregnant. So there is, of course, there may be variation in behavior. There may be gender spectrum, but I'm afraid whether we are going into a terrain of gender nihilism, where gender nihilism says, nothing is there in the base. So nihilism is a very, very problematic ideology. But we all know Sri Chandrachud ji is a left liberal or progressive left liberal person. We knew what was the posturing he had. Hopefully the community will benefit from it. But the apprehension is there still in going it too much to the liberal spectrum. That's what I was mentioning.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to give Harish Iyer an opportunity to respond to these 3 points, which is Rahul's main argument, which is nature, culture, future. The nature bit, which I know that you tackle this, you answer this question on a regular basis almost per day. the natural sort of tendency, this has come up in court as well. If same-sex couples can't have children, how will they raise their children? This was actually one of the arguments placed before the court by the National Commission for Child Rights in India that said, is it safe to experiment with children by handing them over via adoption to non-heterosexual couples who might not be able to give them the family concept that a man and a woman in a heterosexual couple will be able to give them? Well, the nature point, what is your response to that?
So I think we tackled the nature part in 377 itself. While we were debating the Navdeep Singh Johar versus the Union of India debate over there we tackled it itself. And it was, you had the Indian Psychiatric Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the World Health Organization, the Indian Psychologist Organizations, parents of LGBTQI plus people, everyone together. And these all are learned scientific communities that were there. All of them have said that this is a variation and not an aberration of nature. Now, as far as children go, the ability to produce, and if the nature is not just for procreation, nature also uses sex for recreation. They use sex for dialogue many a times, as long as it's consensual with an adult, and that's what Section 377 is. As long as it's consensual, it's with an adult, and it's done in private, it shouldn't be. Even in heterosexual couples, they don't have sex thinking that, oh, let's have sex and make a baby. They do have sex for recreation as well, right? So, and just because somebody can't produce, okay, I mean, it could be true that it doesn't mean that there's anything deficient with us. We don't want to reproduce with women. There could be, I mean, my sperm could be faster than Vicky donors maybe, but I don't want to reproduce, and I don't want to get into that domain. I want to live with a man, cohabit with a man, live with a man. It's not that there is some deficiency in us and we all are impotent or anything of that kind. There could be people who wouldn't be able to this thing, but reproduction is not the only basis of seeing whether someone is natural. There and we have had a history of ill-treating people who cannot reproduce. If a woman cannot reproduce, the swear word of banj is used. You call her barren. If a man can't reproduce, even now it's a grounds of divorce when he just couldn't reproduce probably, but you could divorce a person simply because and humiliate the person because the person can't reproduce. When it comes to, so this happens in nature and nurture, of course, I mean, nurture is where the wokeism, this thing. I think this is not woke. This is being awake. This is being awake to the realities that surround us. Being awake to the idea of science and reasoning. Being awake to the idea of togetherness and to expand our idea of togetherness every now and then, because society is a changing phenomena. So when we speak about nurture, we all need to create a world where we nurture a future which has more understanding, more love, more depth, and more scientific reasoning beyond anything else. And we are a part of science, and which is proven beyond doubt. Rahul could also say that we haven't found a gay gene yet. And my response to that, many a times I say jokingly, of course, that the gay gene is just next to the straight gene. So, because they haven't figured out the straight gene as yet.
If I may, I want to put before Rahul Easwar that the Indian Psychiatry Society has put out a statement saying they believe it's actually good for mental health overall, for adoptive children and for parents to recognize same-sex marriage. It will reduce the instances of depression. It will reduce the instances of self-harm. Plus, they have also said that there is global evidence to prove that same-sex couples or non-heterosexual couples are just as capable parents as heterosexual couples. Well, and given the fact that they have, presented, and this is not the Indian Psychiatry Association, not to be taken lightly, that's an interesting thing as well. Let's take a look at culture. I've always found it interesting. This happened also during 377, that in our country, the one point where various religious men agree is when it comes to gay rights and sometimes women's rights as well. So we have here the Christians, the Muslims, and the Hindu community actually uniting vehemently against same-sex marriage. But I want to understand, Rahul Easwar, if the argument is for Special Marriage Act, which allows for people to marry across communities, then does the religious argument hold?
Religious argument in India is essentially the cultural argument, and the cultural argument in essence is the at least attributed sanctity of the monogamous marriage. See, this is the crux. Even though we don't use those words, this is the crux of it. So religion, which goes into culture, culture which goes into the sanctimony and sanctity of the monogamous marriage, where there's a biological man and a biological woman. That's the reason why I keep on telling people like friends like Harish that there needs to be more education, because I think it was back in 2019 or something, we had a meeting of many different communities, and all the religious heads said that we are nobody to judge. We shouldn't be having that. Many of us in our communities do have homophobic attitudes, which we try to discourage in our own humble ways. But there needs to be widespread discussion, sensitization, and mainstream media and anchors like you are doing a good job, because only when it reaches to more and more people, then there will be an informed discussion and making people understand that we may not accept, but we need to respect. That should be our basic position. We may not accept.
But I just want to bring this to you. And so I also married under the Special Marriage Act, which is an act that was specifically written across personal laws. So if there are people from two different religions, and then what happens within your household is you build a new culture that involves some of your traditions, some of the other person's traditions, and you build a new structure within your home. And we have right now, at least in urban India, lakhs and lakhs of households where people have married across communities, across communal lines, across, south to north, different religions, and you just create your own ecosystem at that point. Is it possible in your minds that via the Special Marriage Act, that, non-binary and non-heterosexual couples can actually run very happy homes?
I mean, if I can be politically be blunt and honest, the whole focus on the Special Marriage Act versus personal laws is slightly different, because many of our right-wing groups want to insert uniform civil code debate into it. That's the reason why Chandrajud and others are saying.
So go ahead, please.
That's the honest thing of it. So, many of our right-wing organizations want to cash in on those opportunity and also push uniform civil code agenda. So, that is the whole crux of saying that personal laws. Otherwise, Special Marriage Act, that's the ambit of the debate. Rather than any religious law, special marriage is going to be the ambit of the debate. But Chandrajud ji is ferociously telling that we are not going into personal law, not because of anything, but he knows that the entire attitude of the people from our side who are opposing is to delay the entire thing, is to stall the time, delay the entire thing, let states respond, let there be, so that it's more of a time delay tactic. I don't think that's a very right way to do it. If central government is having some principled opposition, they should be open and honest in saying this. See, one thing we need to have more in India, and we need to learn from US, is an aspect of political honesty, where people are at least honest. We need not sugarcoat, have euphemisms, talk in indirect language, talk in a language nobody will understand. But at the end of the day, talking the seminar kind of language where only the select few will understand. So I don't think the Uniform Civil Code and the personal law debate should come to this. This is a clear-cut aspect of one thing. Should we give the status of marriage, if there is a status of marriage? That's another debate. Should we accord the status of legal marriage to homosexual community? Many of our people definitely feel that they are having an inhibition. See, ek aurat aur mard ke beech hai na, is it a man and woman? How can this is the inhibition? You are basically not dealing with any principles of law or any scientific finding. I keep on quoting Simon Levy to Harish ji. Perhaps nobody in my right-leaning spectrum has even heard of Simon Levy and his comments on whether there is a gay gene or not. So it is less of scientific apprehension, but more of cultural apprehensions that needs more debate. Going to schools, going to colleges, interacting. If some people are coming out, see, these are the things that community should do. While I may retain some of the debates, especially regarding the gay genes, but this point was argued by Mukul Rohatgi, are saying that homosexuality is in genes. Definitely it is genetic, was one of the point argued. So with a bit more political honesty.
Would you mind clarifying something for me? So when we talk about the Uniform Civil Code, the idea is to then, is the idea there, so I can understand, to merge all personal laws into one code And that case, doesn't that then work really well for, non-heterosexual or marriage equality?
If I can take 30 seconds, 10 years back, I used to be a very avid supporter of uniform civil code, thinking that it is national integration. Then I read a very interesting person called Guruji Golwalkar of RSS, who rightly points out that uniform civil code is nothing but a shorthand method because Hindus are afraid of Muslim population, and it is a very negative way. This is not Rahul Easwar telling, this is the largest serving RSS Sarsanchalak rightly pointing out that there are many people among us means Hindu community, who are wrongly afraid of the Muslim population growth. And he says this is a negative way to approach. So what we right-wingers usually say with uniform civil code is the implied understanding of population control. And that is useless because already we have reached below 2.1 replacement level, fertility level. There is no point in any population bill. But this idea still lingers. And interestingly, and you will find it very interesting, Nehruji, Ambedkarji, all the left liberals were the people who used to argue for uniform civil code earlier. But after a point of time, our right wingers also took it up. So uniform civil code is an insincere agenda from our part to control Muslim population, which is not exploding. So I think that's an entirely different debate. Whenever I go to Sangh Vedis or RSS stages, I keep on pointing out that Guruji Golwalkar himself said this is not useful, but it is more of an election scare tactic, say creating a sense of other with our Muslim brothers, scaring Hindus into some kind of unity. So I don't think that's a disingenuous agenda. That's an insincere agenda. That shouldn't be the focus point. But when you come to the homosexual debate, it should be more of science. It should be more of apprehension. It should be more of sensitization and education. And Harish Ji will vouch for me. Maybe 7 years back, I was not this much understanding. I also had a bit more preconceived notion, but for the debates and all, when we read more and more, you seem to understand. You may have some kind of subconscious non-acceptance, but at least consciously we tend to respect, saying that I may not agree, but it is my democratic responsibility to respect.
Let me allow Harish Iyer to respond to this idea of the future, which is basically the legal aspects of it. Whether it is, and it's been the whole reason that this argument is currently before our Honorable Supreme Court is the legal aspects of it, so that there is marriage equality across all gender, sexual orientation, and sex, about being able to will your property to your spouse, being able to make decisions together, being able to buy life insurance together, being able to make important decisions about being the next of kin when one of you is in hospital, adopting children, raising children, buying a home, caring for each other's parents, all of these things there. And there are so many things that heterosexual couples take for granted on a regular basis. How you register your house, how you register your house lease, when you move into a community or you rent a home, the kind of questions that are asked of you, all of these things are tied back into the fact that in our society, marriage is taken very, very seriously. Also, I want to point out, technically in India, you can do whatever you want, but you are not taken as a full adult until you get married. I mean, there is a reason why people still think Rahul Gandhi is a young leader. He's like midway in his 50s, is because he's not married. That is why. I mean, at the end of the day, we tie so much into whether or not the person is married. And Harish Iyer, I want you to address this, the idea of the legalities of it. It is problematic because many laws are going to have to be tweaked. Do you think that this is the need of the hour?
I'll tell you why it's the need of the hour. One of the reasons is when the pandemic happened, and in disaster is the best time to test our preparedness for anything. When the pandemic happened, I mean, after Section 377 was read down, many people came out of the closet because sometimes the law is the impetus for society to follow suit. Many people came out of the closet, many media channels which used to speak about a specific agenda, many language media channels, they started taking a stand because they should. I mean, it is not sometimes human rights is not an issue of debate. Human rights is an issue where you need to take a stand. It's not about being having journalistic principles of not taking a stand. You can't take a stand. You can't say that, oh, rape should be allowed. Okay, there is no two sides to it. homophobia also, there could be no two sides to it. So one of the things that the pandemic taught us, there were many people who moved from their homophobic homes, their natal homes, which were homophobic or transphobic, and they moved to bigger cities in the quest of jobs. They stayed over here, and they revealed after coming to a big city that they're queer. I personally know of families that that completely disowned their partner, their children over here. And once they stayed over here, they found a partner of their own liking, and then the pandemic happened. They started living together. They built a house together. They built wealth together. All that happened, and suddenly the pandemic happens, and one of the partners lands up in the hospital. The other partner is not able to take a decision for this partner, so they call up the family, the natal family, because they need financial support. The natal family comes and they take complete charge of their child while completely negating that the child had a relationship with somebody else. So this entire relationship has a breakdown. This child, there've been a spike in the number of suicide cases. People who didn't, trigger warning for everyone who's there, but people who didn't, take the path of taking their lives, basically went through other forms of depression, mental health issues that was quite rampant. So it's not a question of life, Faye, it's a question of death also. On can you die peacefully if you don't have marriage rights in this country where you can love a person but you can't marry that person. There are many people who don't believe in the idea of marriage. I mean, that's a different lot, and that could be, and their rights are important also. They should not marry if they don't want to marry, right? But for people who wish to marry, people who will look for companionship, who wants to have a legal stamp, now also people can marry, but they can't have a legal stamp, which means that I'll never have the right on my partner when I can't take decisions on behalf of my partner or start a family or think of myself as a family unit, when it comes to anything, whether it comes to my credit scores, whether it comes to anything to purchase a house, everything that you listed. Faye, you went to hospitals. There could be many of them who could have been from the LGBTQI plus community, and there were many who lost their lives and their families didn't come for them, and their chosen family couldn't stake claim many a times to their bodies also, because tum kaun ho? Who are you to stake the claim? They were asked these questions and they had no answer. It's a right not to live, the right to die with dignity also that we are seeking.
So actually, I have a question for Rahul Easwar from Aman Peshawari, who's one of our viewers. Rahul, he says, there may be many closeted people within right-wing organizations as well, like the RSS. Won't this give a boost for more openness for such individuals to continue to have those beliefs and be part of their surroundings?
Beyond one organization or the other, there may be people who have variation in behavior, and I believe that's one thing we need to accept. At least the partial acceptance came in when decriminalization was done. Even before decriminalization, we were all of the opinion that, see, criminalizing something is wrong. We may be having two minds regarding accepting or not, but criminalizing a personal behavior in their private, and as you all know, Indian police system, they make, at least some people in our good police system make it a point to exploit, extort, and blackmail, which is a non-reality. I don't think there is any merit in denying such things, especially in the rural backgrounds or the semi-urban backgrounds. They make it a point to extort, blackmail, abuse, and all these kind of abuse of power comes in. So decriminalization is a point that everyone accepted. But the core point here is the religious scriptures or the cultural scriptures or the books. They all give the status of the sanctity of marriage to one male and female. So this has been the inculcated behavior for the past many centuries. So there is a natural apprehension. So there needs to be more debate and discussion. Then people will come to a point where they'll accept and respect more. And RSS also has taken a very reasonable stand in this. Even people like Pujaniya Sarsang Chalak, Mohan Bhagawat ji or Sri Dattatreya Hosbale, they were all no, they were not accepting forthright, but they were going for a stand, a very soft posture that we shouldn't oppose this and we should be a part of more inclusion kind of activity. We don't agree that this is progressive, or we don't agree the liberal progressive aspect of it, but we believe it is more of human rights. It's more of mutual respect that needs to be accepted, and there should be more inclusiveness. That's the line of argument, from the right usually that's going. But I doubt whether, because we had a very open discussion with our Muslim brothers and Christian community brothers, they were having a bit more apprehension regarding all these things. Maybe because of the past experience or historical, dictums or axioms. Yes, so there is a long way to go for Harish's community, and that's a known fact. And one more point, if I can add, in Indian culture, there was more kind of acceptance. And especially after the British came in and the Western agencies came in, they had these kind of laws being enacted. That doesn't mean, we were the great or we were more broad-minded. Because we had less codified system, we were more accepting and more respecting towards diversities, was the open and honest truth of the past.
Rahul Easwar, a quick question to you as well. One of the things that we've seen, all of us have seen in our personal lives, are people who are not heterosexual, forced into heterosexual marriages by their parents, leading to severe mental health issues to both partners, severe mental health issues for children born out of that marriage, eventually ending in heartbreak for everybody involved. Isn't this better?
I mean, that's a very serious issue. That's one of my close friends, who Harish might be knowing, is one of the most famous fashion designers, who is also from the homosexual community in Kerala and in India. So there are many people, he fortunately didn't get forced. There are other people who will definitely say, "Ye sudhar jayega, you go for this," or or the more upper class will say there is conversion therapy. You can go for this, and we all know it is not very scientific and all. It is just for the sake of it. So yes, there needs to be acceptance. There needs to be respect. There can be an academic debate, just like Harish and I am having regarding the Simon Levy, regarding the genetic structure. He can ask back where is the heterosexual gene located. Yes, the academic debates, I believe, should definitely continue. But on ground, we should be more inclusive and accepting. And even recently in Kerala, one particular lesbian couple, they were denied flat and all when they found out that they were more belonging to the homosexual. So these are all wrong things, because they have to stay somewhere, right? We have to be at least humane about that. They have to stay somewhere. You cannot throw out any two, especially youngsters of the age 20 or 22, because of their orientation. But yes, but I will absolutely and respectfully disagree with the Chief Justice posturings. But yes, we need to stretch ourselves a bit more. And one thing we all keep on saying inside the right-wing spectrum, at least homosexual community wants to marry. At least they are respecting the institution of marriage. There are a huge sort of population, liberal population, who is going against the very idea of marriage. So even though we don't admit it outside that often, we secretly feel happy that at least the idea of marriage, or at least the idea of family, is still intact. And I hope that's one positive thing that will always be secretly inside the mind of our right wing.
Harish, question from Tanvi D, who says, I would like to ask Harish Iyer why the queer community only prioritizes what cis gays want. When are cis gays going to step aside and let trans reservation get the attention it deserves?
Of course. I think, first of all, I don't identify as a cis gay man. I identify as a gender fluid person. But what Tanvi is saying is incredibly important. One of the most important aspects, and I'd like to take this opportunity to actually speak about it, is horizontal reservation for trans people. We need horizontal reservation for trans people, because you create these quotas, larger quotas of OBCs, and there's no reservation for trans people, and trans people face double or triple the amount of challenges. And it's important for everyone who has a voice and who has access to a platform to use the platform to speak, and to also pass the mic to other people to speak. As far as cis gay people go, one thing that I'm really happy about is that if you look at the 20 petitions this time, there was a time when I came out of the closet, I saw only cis gay men around me, and I aligned myself around them too, because then you see that this is the only form. But now if you go to see the petitions, there is Rituparna Bora, who makes a very feminist argument. There is somebody, there is Akai Padmasari, who is there from Karnataka, who is making an argument, who's one of the petitioners. There is a whole gamut of people. There's Zainab Patel, who's making an argument. So the whole idea of a particular form, and there is heterogeneity within the queer community, is something that is coming alive. And it's important for all of us to acknowledge that. It's important for all of us to look around the room and see if there are adequate voices which are there. And I mean, it doesn't help just saying that, we just don't want to have panels. We want to have panels with women, but where are the trans women? Are all the women belonging to a certain caste and a certain religion? Is there diversity over there? I think there are different intersectional aspects to diversity, and our band of petitioners, the 20 petitioners, actually depict that. And in fact, the most vociferous arguments were made by Menaka Guruswamy and Arundhati Kajju today. And I think that it's important for us to notice and take notice of all these things as well. Things are changing, not perfect, but things are getting better.
Rahul Easwar, we have a couple of people on our chat window who are appreciating how far you have come over the last several years in terms of understanding the community and accepting the community. I think Harish Iyer agrees with that as well.
I wanted to say, Faye, that I have interacted with Rahul for the past 10 years. Okay, almost 10 years, I could say easily. And it takes a lot of effort to come from one side of the thing, and it's liberal to also be right. Okay, that's something I don't identify as a right winger, but it's but the fact that he has an open understanding of things is the way. He himself is an example of how society is evolving, and he stands as a beacon of hope for other people who could call on him as a friend. So I know that tomorrow, if I'm in Kerala and I'm attacked, I can call on Rahul Easwar.
Definitely, Harish. Just one submission. We in the right wing, if there is one word we don't agree with the most, is the word liberal. Anything else we can agree. That's no. On a lighter note, we usually call ourselves pluralists. We don't, because there is a clear-cut liberal fight. No. This is just on a lighter note. But as you rightly said, yes, there was an increasing and genuine acceptance. I know if I recollect, I was a bit more aggressive and angry at the earlier point of time that how could you break our family system? See, this is the thought process that goes inside. As if some people are coming to break our family system is the kind of narrative that we have. Yes, this is a common ground. I believe genuine liberals or genuine right-wingers all can make regarding basic respect for every human, irrespective of their caste, class, religion, or orientation.
Rahul Easwar, Alan Binoy asks what your understanding is of how children will be affected by marriage equality. Marriage equality should ideally also come with adoption rights. As of now, for Alan's understanding, the Juvenile Justice Act, actually governs adoption, and it says that a man cannot adopt a baby girl. A single man can adopt a baby boy. What happens then when we have a marriage of two men or two women or trans men or women or or different members of the community? So I want to understand from you, Rahul Easwar, what your stand is and your understanding is of how children will be affected.
Yeah, 2 points. From my own mind, our own conventional thinking and experience, we always believe that we should have a disciplinarian father and a loving mother, because that's how we have always seen. The father is always there with the stick, being disciplined, even though he's soft inside, he shows that he's more hard so that the child doesn't go in the wrong way. We always have the mother who is loving, who is giving extra cookies, and the father, the morning. So this was the thought process in our mind. And I believe there should be a balance. Beyond the orientations, there needs to be a discipline and approach, whether it be from a father or a mother, whether it be from a homosexual couple or not. There needs to be balancing of these two female and male aspects, or feminine and masculine aspect, if we can call that word. So that feminine energy, which we generally consider as a soft, caring, compassionate, empathical energy, and the masculine form, which is more of disciplinarian, hard work oriented stuff. So that thing should be there. I don't know how homosexual couple will be managing it, but they will find out a way of their own. Second, regarding the legal aspect, this is also a serious debate that we need to take. See, to be honest, the parliament may not debate it, but there are many areas of law where the Supreme Court cannot make a law. As we all know, courts cannot make any law by their own. They may be able to interpret. So how do we deal with the legal complication that arises of Domestic Violence Act, of divorce and such things? So Supreme Court right now has taken.
On this point, I want to communicate to all of the people who have been arguing that the Domestic Violence Act, there are many people in this country, men's rights activists, who argue that the Domestic Violence Act should be gender neutral. It is not gender neutral. If we have marriage equality in the future, all of these acts will also become gender neutral. They will need to become gender neutral. If your domestic partner abuses or beats you up, it is domestic violence. That change will eventually have to happen.
Yeah, I'm basically a men's rights activist too. We are the people who keep on demanding men's commission and all. But at the end of the day, we all realize one thing. When you go to the rural India, see, 99% of the atrocities are done on women by men. See, we can always argue that, other kind of sexual violences can be gender neutral, but the reality, I'm not saying the urban reality, but when you go to the, rural realities and, inward, villages of India, it is not like that the men, when they travel in bus, the female will come and prick their back or, create a trouble for them. So when we disagree with the whole idea of gender neutrality. That's the reason why, we argue from the right, we believe in gender justice. We believe in gender complementarity. We disagree with the whole paradigm of gender neutrality, saying that it is unnatural. We argue more of a gender justice, gender complementary angle, just like the Pope Francis once articulated. We believe male and female are equal, but we believe they are complementary and unique too. See, we don't agree with the white paper premise that the left liberal has. Left liberal's premise is basically that gender is something like a social construct. We don't agree with that view.
You don't agree with that. But I just want to point out one thing. You did say, of course, that a family should have a strict father and a loving mother. There are many families in which the mom is strict.
Yeah, and the dad. It can be the other way around. It can be the other way.
What you're talking about is parents who instill values and discipline and instill a certain work ethic in their children. That is, by no means at all tied in any way to gender or to sexuality or to sexual orientation or to just genitalia for that matter. I'm going to give Harish Iyer an opportunity to respond to all of the various things that were said. Harish, also, expecting that even within a non-heterosexual couple, that there will be sort of masculine energy and feminine energy, sort of heteronormative, which is, this is our idea of what it should be. And so, we have these people who look, if there are two men who are in a relationship, then one of them has to be slightly effeminate. Only then it will work out. Or if there are two women in a relationship, then one of them has to be slightly what they call butch or masculine. Only then it will work out. Even that is actually forcing our ideas. It's not necessarily, in my understanding, that way. Harish, go ahead.
True. I mean, I'm in love with someone and we both wear skirts. So if you'd ask me who wears the pants in the house, none of us do. Okay, so we both wear skirts and we both are very happy. There are times when we complement each other in different ways. There are times when he needs support and I come in. He's very good with art, so he depicts the compassionate part, but I'm very good with patience. So if there's something that requires a lot of patience and a lot of listening, I do it, which is some of it could be termed as if there's anything strenuous activity, he goes and does it. But if there's strenuous activity that involves me talking, I would go and do it. So there's nothing like there's nothing like totally 100% masculine and 100% feminine. There is a woman in all of us. There is a man in all of us. If you have to put it in the box of a man and a woman, then I think we all are mixtures. Like, not every man is the same. There are some men who are very compassionate, and I would want to stand up for those men. There are some men who will put their child on the crib and go and fetch the child. In my office, for instance, we started a creche, and we were assuming that it'll be women who will come over there. So just out of curiosity, I just called up the creche people and said, "Oh, how many women have turned up?" She said, "Why did you assume that it's a woman?" There were 7 men who turned up, and there was 1 woman who turned up, who was looking after the child. So the whole idea of that it has to fit into some box that we have created. It is a spectrum. There could be very kind. I've seen seen women who are not very good with babies, and I've seen men who are fantastic with babies. They look after children very well. So, and I know of men who are not good with babies also. So it's not, so when it comes to adoption, it's not just about faith, it's not about the right of LGBT people to adopt or single people to adopt. It's the right of the child to get adopted also. It's the right
Yeah.
of the child to actually not live in an orphanage with in a crowded orphanage with many this thing where we go on every religious day and we celebrate with them because we want to feel good about it. Give them families, give them education, give them this thing. And there is there was this whole thing about COVID orphans. There were many children who were orphaned during COVID. Imagine if there were LGBT people.
Harish, I want to point out here that in India, we have between a 3 and a 4 year waiting period to adopt it.
Yeah.
3 to 4 years is how long prospective parents have to wait before they are assigned a child. In the meantime, think of the children who are aging out of the system by that time. I mean, this is what we should be focusing on fixing. And creating more, and creating a structure that looks for healthy families, families that can offer loving, safe, secure spaces for children. If our system is stronger, we will be able to support those families better. And actually, gender, sexual orientation, all of these things play no part in creating, I mean, we know of couples. For example, Menika Guruswamy and Aradhani Katju, Supreme Court lawyers arguing in front of the bench, are a couple. Their house will no doubt be a good place for children to grow up, but they are not allowed at this point to be able to raise children that way. And these are things that we should actually try and find a way to fix. We're running out of time here. We have a lot of people asking us how we put this panel together, how I've chosen the guests. The aim is to bring in as many varied voices as we can during this period, because this is what we're discussing. The idea is to listen to each other and learn from each other and empathize with each other so that we can understand what everybody's arguments are from. I think one of the serious problems we face in this country right now is that we're not willing to listen to the other side. And that is causing a divide that is wider and wider and deeper, aided no doubt by television debates that actually cause people to hate each other more than to find common ground. I think we've done a really good job on this debate of listening to each other, understanding where the other person's coming from. The fact that initially we had questions on our chat window. Towards the end, people are like, I like what Rahul Easwar is saying. I like the journey he has made and the fact that he is willing to acknowledge that journey personally. The fact that Harish Iyer was willing to answer all of the questions that people were asking. I think this is progress. And I think it's up to us, our generation, to right the wrongs that we have made and to find ways to listen to each other and to find ways to push through progress, because these children that we're talking about is also our responsibility. This future is also our responsibility. Rahul Easwar, Harish Iyer, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. I hope this becomes, it's on the internet, so share it with your friends who feel that they need to understand these arguments as well. We'll try and bring in more and more voices. If there's someone you'd like to hear, please put their name in the chat window and we'll try and bring them onto this channel as well. Thank you so much for listening. Good night.